everybody, and welcome back to EU Masters. My name is Munchballs, and once again, I'm joined by Orcs as we head into game number 4 of day number 2. We've had some bangers today, Orcs, but once again, we've had some disastrous results for the UK. It's not feeling good to be a UK caster today.
We're kind of used to it at this point, honestly. Expectations were mediocre, and the results were unfortunately a little bit lower. There's still hope, but for now, there's a lot of other regions we can look at and who could potentially adopt us as fans. I think the LFL currently seems to have half the world as fans right now, so maybe we could just slide in there.
Hey, look, XMAT is looking real good right now. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, UK player won today. One of the two exactly. At the event.
So, technically, it was a win. We take those. Let's take a look at what has been happening today and where we're at in the tournament as we kick off the second half of the day. That was your halftime. I hope you went and got a sandwich. I hope you went and got a cup of tea because we've got plenty more action coming at you. And I hope you're ready for it because we're going to be heading into Group A in a little bit. We're going to be topping off what's happening in Group B for the day as well. So each of the teams will have had 2 games by the end of today, Dan.
Yeah, so we're going to see a little bit more. I think we are starting to see in a lot of the groups, particularly Group B and Group D, kind of the hierarchy extend out, which, as we said before, unfortunately puts BTX on the bottom. But in Group B, you know, the scores don't tell the full story. I think that's a big thing to hit on. We've had lots of games throughout this tournament where it's been closer than you'd expect, and there was definitely a potential for an upset, and we continue to see that.
Yeah, well, and I am curious on how these groups are going to pan out because, again, like, it's important to remember it's double round robin, right?
Yep.
So, yes, we've got some results in, and yes, some extreme conclusions will be being drawn across the world on who is the best team and who is the worst team, but there is time for redemption stories. The tournament is by no means over yet. We're only just heating up. But let's talk about the game that we're going into tonight here as... this one is going to be quite an important series, especially for the side of Misfits. But let's take a look at what actually happened with Misfits in their most recent series. Because, Dan, this was brutal. Because they drafted a full late game composition pretty much with the Senna scaling up. But they finished the game in 22 minutes and 12 seconds. This was brutal.
Yeah, I mean, this was a game where G2 Arctic needed a lead, and they got stomped from minute 1. It just felt like complete domination. You can see 22 minutes on the clock. They were 13.6k gold ahead. That doesn't happen too often. It was just so one-sided. And I think a big factor here was the rotations from the team. This wasn't just individual outplays as much as they were there. We saw Misfits moving around the map so well. Sertuss in particular, in this game, had an 82.4% kill participation. Very little happened on the map without him showing up and making a contribution. And just the way they were playing as a team was honestly excellent. Really great to see.
Really beautiful play coming out from them across the course of yesterday. Their opponents coming in today as well, SuppUp, actually had a really good series. Now, they didn't manage to win the game. I keep saying series. I'm from the LPL. We do best of 3 over there, okay? Just, you're going to have to deal with my wording a little bit on that one. But we saw SuppUp go up against Aggro Rogue, and it was damn close. For 35 minutes, SuppUp had the lead. And then in the last couple of fights, Aggro Rogue, a team we know for playing late-game team fights, turns out won the late-game team fights. And it was a little bit of a heartbreaker for the Balkans fans watching. And today, I feel like it's another game where the Balkans are going to be the underdogs. SuppUp definitely have their work cut out for them, but it's feeling like this isn't going to be another 0-6 EU Masters for them. This feels like a team that are bringing a lot more to the table this time around.
Yeah, I think there was definitely good play there, and the fact that, you know, they were against the reigning champions in a Go Rogue and they managed to make it so competitive wasn't sort of our expectations coming in. And I think, you know, Misfits Premier is another hard opponent, but they've shown that they can kind of rise to the challenge, and hopefully that's what we get to see. Specifically, I think it was twohoyrz and VZZ who really stepped up for this roster. VZZ on the Jinx was just absolutely monstrous, and if they can put them in a good position in this draft, maybe they have a potential to carry.
Yeah, that's one of the big things I was pointing out as well, was twohoyrz looked amazing in some of the team fights. VZZ on his Jinx as well had some really, really great highlight moments. So we'll be keeping our eyes on those players, but conversely, on the other side of the board, for Misfits, it felt like literally everyone had an amazing game yesterday. That wasn't one of those games where it's like, our composition spikes at this moment in the game, so we're going to play it slow, and then when we hit 2 items, we'll blow. No. It was just win lane, win game, just dominate every single portion of the map, and then just roll forward with it. So I feel like there wasn't a huge amount of analysis to take away from the Misfits game. It's much more like, okay, Now we just got to be scared of what LFL's bringing in their second seed.
Yeah, I think I'm looking specifically at the mid lane. I think if you shut down the mid lane, you stop Sertuss from just taking over the map, that's where you maybe have a bit of a chance to breathe and get to those points late in the game where SuppUp started to find some momentum. But I think if you lose that mid lane matchup and he has priority, things are just going to fall apart. SuppUp already starting to target some of those mid lane picks with that Sylas.
Yeah, so we've got the Sylas ban, we've got a Rel ban, as well as the Thresh, so 2 support bans coming on through. And we're already starting to run out of bans, and there's a lot of junglers still available. Things like your Hecarim, your Udyr, your Lilia that have been really high priorities in this tournament, and also things like the Tristana. So it feels like SuppUp going to have pick of the litter, really, when it comes to that first pick in this draft, which, you know, often will help out on the blue side, but for the red side as well, if a lot of the power picks make it through the draft, you can quite often just get the double power pick response.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with a lot of picks left open. It kind of can open up that vulnerability. And it's kind of up to SuppUp on this third ban. Is there anything you're massively concerned about passing over? They are going to take out the Hecarim. There's still going to be that Udyr open available. And the question is going to be, are you prioritizing that? Are you prioritizing the Tristana? I think potentially the Tristana could be a good pickup because we've seen 2hoyrz and VZZ both be really strong. And we're talking about this mid priority being important. If you take that flex, you could be in a comfortable spot. And actually, it's Misfits Prime not wanting to deal with the Udyr themselves.
Yeah, so both Udyr and Hecarim, those 2 junglers we were talking about, taken off the board. Things like Lilia, though, still available.
Volibear as well.
High priority jungler. Yeah, the Volibear too. Also, all of those AD carriers like the Tristana that we talked about. But one thing we've not talked about, the Seraphine has slipped through the bans. We've seen it. Not every single team in the tournament is playing it, but some of them are. And when it looks good, it looks amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that champion is just incredibly broken. Super flexible, so you can put it where you want. Good at achieving priority as well, so it ticks a lot of boxes for SuppUp. And Misfits Premier, we saw them have a crushing early victory. I think into a Seraphine, you're kind of forced into that. Although, if you're taking a Jinx, it does give you a lot of team fighting potential later on.
Now, I want to point out as well that the Seraphine is a flex to an extent, because with this team specifically, SSU, both 2hoyrz and Mersa have played the Seraphine this split. So this is very much a flexible pick that they can send to other lanes. The Jinx going to be locked in. Tahm, Kench available with the Thresh band away. That's going to be the go-to pick. So Woolite and Jactroll already set up for success. They played a scaling bot lane in their first game of EU Masters. It's another scaling bot lane. They didn't seem to wait for the scaling last time, so it might be an aggressive scaling bot lane again.
I think as well, potentially here, SuppUp, they could take Tristana, have a double flex. You could even put the Seraphine down in the support role, because realistically, Tahm Kench isn't a support who applies too much pressure to you. You could have a pretty free laning phase there, and they are just going to take the Tristana. This is actually working out pretty well for SuppUp, I'd say, so far.
Just throw in the Gragas now, and just for the triple flex, nobody knows where anything's going.
Even
just
SuppUp wouldn't know.
Completely throw it up. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll see how they're going to round this one out. I'd love to see a jungler, though, honestly, with already a couple of jungle bans coming on in. It feels like that pool is going to start to get limited if we don't have some lock-ins.
Yeah, I think Volibear is definitely the go-to here. One of those big, strong junglers still left available and provides a bit of front line for the composition, especially if you are potentially putting a Seraphine in the support role. Having a tank jungler is quite important. And now Misfits Premier, I feel like you could take a mid laner here if you wanted to secure priority on one of those before you go in the second rotation. Sertuss was really solid in the Zoe. Potentially you could go for something like the Orianna if you want that extra peel and protection for Woolite, and they are just going to lock that one in.
Yeah, I think Orianna easily the most comfortable blind mid laner in the game right now. So they locked that in, and now going into the second phase, they can start to pinch the mid lane pool themselves, make sure that Sertuss has a good matchup. Although it could be the Seraphine still going to that mid lane for 2hoyrz, it could go down to Mersa. So we'll see what Misfits think about that one. It's going to be the Alistar ban. They think that's a Seraphine mid.
Or a Seraphine AD carry. It could go that direction as well. That's the thing that makes it tricky. You can't really definitely guarantee where either of those are going to go, so the bans can just kind of be thrown away, but at least you kind of pigeonhole. If you ban enough supports, then maybe you force them to put the Seraphine in the support role, or maybe you force different variations. But SuppUp, they can just start banning away junglers. We were talking about how Lilia, Volibear were those 2 left open. Volibear's been picked, Lilia's been banned. The pool is getting tighter now.
Yeah, now we start to move over to stuff like Nidalee, for example, and even maybe the Graves. These are both picks that we've seen come out from our man Shlatan across the course of this split, and he has good win rates on them, 80 and 75 respectively. So we'll see if Shlatan is going to go onto one of those more farm-heavy junglers, but I will say the meta is definitely shifted away from champs like Graves, and even Nidalee we only see sometimes if it's got a good laner to set it up as well. So perhaps you could go for like one of the more old school combos, like the Nidalee alongside a Renekton in the top lane or something. But I don't. That's down to what Misfits want to go for.
Yeah, and I think it gets a little bit tricky at this point to try and ban away more junglers. You've hit that S tier, so they are just going to go for the gangplank at the top side, which I think is solid. It's a great blind pick. It's going to help to assist the bot lane, adds that global pressure, so good takeaway. In Misfits Premier, they're just going to take the Renekton, which, if you're watching earlier, we saw some really destructive gameplay from Adam on K-Corp. Sort of showed how much you can do with that champion in the mid game.
Yeah, Adam single-handedly annihilating NLC dreams on that Renekton earlier. But with that Renekton, it does set up for something like the Nidalee, the Taliyah, these AP junglers to come on through for Shlatan as well. Over to the side of SSU now, as they have to round out this composition. And again, we're not entirely sure where any of these picks are going. I'm guessing it's Seraphine mid Tristana AD carry, and we'll likely see a support locked in here as the final pick.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense. Into the Renekton, you just happen to take that one. It's an okay matchup for you. And now this is, yeah, again, this is the point where things start to get locked in to an extent. But even after everything's been taken, there's still potential for there to be flexes afterwards, because Tristana and Seraphine can just be interchangeable mid AD carry if they need them to be. And they are going to go for the Akali. So this does make me think it's going to be the Seraphine support, the Tristana AD carry, and then the Akali in the mid lane. So clearly, seeing the lane come out from Misfits Premier, the Tahm, Kench, they aren't too concerned about having an enchanter support. They don't feel that threat that you'd sort of experience going up into things like the Thresh, like the Alistar. So a really strong scaling bot lane for SuppUp that will actually outscale Misfits Premier. And as you were saying, Joe, they are locking in that Nidalee, so a really strong top side that Shlatan can look to play around.
I don't want to say anything that's not true, but I definitely called the Renekton Nidalee. That was an unbelievable 5-head plays coming out, and the play-by-play guys. He's meant to know this stuff, man.
Yeah, I called the Seraphine support.
I'm gonna take a job.
I called the Seraphine support, so you know it's too many big brains on this cast right now.
Yeah, they are big, but unfortunately they're also sometimes a little bit smooth. Let's talk about this Akali though, coming out from twohoyrz, because I have to say, Akali is a champion that I'm always very excited to watch since the changes. Feels like she's really coming to her own once again. And against Orianna, it feels like one of those matches where if you can find the right opportunities, it can be very advantageous. But Orianna's one of the best champions at just holding people like Akali at arm's length.
Yeah, but the thing is that threat pressure kind of will maybe put Sertuss on the back foot, because playing into an Akali, playing into a Volibear, if you start trying to rotate over the side lane, as we saw from Misfits Premier's last game, you can be really, really vulnerable. You can't face check without vision, because if you walk into the jungle, there's an Akali there, very easy to find the 100 to 0. So it may do a decent job of sort of stopping that rotation pressure coming out from Sertuss. But the big thing for me when I look at Misfits Premier's composition is that top lane. That's why they're going to be playing around. If Shlatan can get a lead, they can expand that to the rest of the map and then get the ball rolling, because realistically, if they have a slow-paced game here, Seraphine just makes it so much more difficult as you get later and later into this one.
Yeah, the opposite side of that coin as well, though, is that we're talking about how obviously Nidalee Renekton, it's like peas in a pod, right? You want to play towards that Renekton if you play Nidalee. But on the other side of the table, you do have the scaling element of the Jinx for Woolite. Woolite is quite often the player that this team leans on in the later stages of the game to be the premier damage carry. And, you know, he's got a Jinx. This is the late game carry in the meta right now alongside Seraphine. So alongside Seraphine? Alongside Senna. So it feels like Woolite is set up for success with that Tahm Kench, but also they can play that weak side. They could just clear waves all through the early game if they need to, if all of the action's going on the top side. The one thing I do want to add, though, is that we're going to see SSU, who played a pretty slow game in their first game for VU Masters, going up against Misfits here. And we already talked about how fast Misfits played. They've got a Renekton and a Nidalee. That's the kind of composition that snowballs real hard. I feel like SSU are going to have to really book up their ideas in the early game and make sure that they are being proactive and not just letting Misfits direct the flow of this game.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you need to shut down those early attempts at top lane. What I expect from Misfits is you'll see Nidalee path towards top lane. You'll see when the wave bounces back, they'll use that wave to try and dive the Gnar. And if they pull it off, they can just really put the hurt down onto klowny. I want Spooky to try and intercept this. If you can stop that from happening, if you can apply some pressure mid, they'll be in a more comfortable spot. And it's just basically a game of slowing down Misfits Premier and to make the game a lot easier. If they get another, 22-minute speed run, that's kind of the win con for the French team.
Yeah, Misfits would love to just completely speed run EU Masters. We'll see if they can keep the ball rolling after their 22 minutes and 12-second win in their first series of EU Masters against G2 Arctic. Now, coming into this one as well, we've got to remember, SSU coming from the Balkans. This is a region that last time around went 0-6, but SSU had a good first series. They showed up against Aggro Rogue. They were ahead for about 35 minutes of the game. It fell apart a little bit in the late game, but I think coming from an underdog region, the Balkans can hold their heads high here, and I'm hoping that SSU can show us a good performance, because when you look at this composition, like Gnar against Renekton, you can expect that to be a reasonably good laning phase for the Gnar. And against the Jinx, Tahm, Kench, you think Tristana and Seraphine will be able to have a bit of freedom in that lane. So I'm looking towards Spooky and what he does, where he goes on the map with this lane presence that he has.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think when I'm looking at someone from Misfits Premier who can really be an issue at thorn on the side, it's Shlatan, and I'm like, Spooky, you need to answer this. So I'm going to be tracking what he's doing in the early game, seeing where he's applying that pressure. I think it's really going to set the stage for how this game pans out. And the thing is that if Misfits Premier do get that advantage and get that lead, it's not like they're going to significantly fall off later on. You got the Orianna, you got the Jinx. These carries will carry you through the later stages. They will run away with any momentum. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking towards.
I want to dig a little deeper there, Dan, because you said that Shlatan's the guy that we've got to keep our eyes on, and that Spooky has to try and keep in check. If you're Spooky right now, what's the play? How do you keep Shlatan in check? How do you make that happen?
Personally, I would like to see him put a lot of attention towards top side, because I think that's the obvious place where you're going to see attention from Shlatan. Easy setup in the lane with the point and click stun. And essentially, if you can just assist klowny here and stop him from getting dived, you should be in a comfortable spot. Nidalee needs to snowball to be really effective. And bot lane isn't under too much threat. Tahm Kench doesn't have a stun that you can easily set up. He has to obviously stack the passive. And mid lane, Akali is really tricky to pin down. So you kind of know where Shlatan's going to end up. It's just about being there at the right time. And you see Spooky pathing towards the bot side. I think after you've cleared your bot side jungle, you can try and get the scuttle, but then I want to see a reset, and I want to see you head top and cover klowny if he needs it. Although it looks like klowny should be okay. The wave's in a pretty decent spot for him right now. He should just be able to collect this, but it's when it bounces back, that's where it's problematic, and it is going to do that soon.
And importantly, Shlatan right now has full information of what's going on in this jungle, especially with Agresivoo moving down and dropping a ward. That's going to help in that regard. But he had a ward on Raptors as well, so Agresivoo actually moving to the bottom crab instead. Spooky's here as well. We've got a 3v3 on our hands. Woolite gets a bomb, but the exhaust is going to deny a lot of that engagement. But Spooky flashes in onto Jactroll, who actually jumps forward to gobble up the AD carry. Shlatan's here as well. It's an absolute mosh pit in the bottom lane, but Spooky's the target. A couple more autos. 2 kills for Misfits. Looking for more as the flash comes in, and the dive is there from Shlatan. Orcs, you said to watch him, and watch him we will.
And that is exactly what Misfits Premier need. Huge setup coming there, tons of kills onto Shlatan. It's exactly the early game you want, and it's disaster for SuppUp. They instigated that play, and you have to ask yourself, did they need to go for it? We talked about how they need to mitigate the plays of Misfits Premier, and they just handed a bunch of kills over on a plate. Shlatan, he's going to be able to get that bot scuttle. He's heading top side to contest that as well. Jactroll's there, Agresivoo's there. It's going to be double scuttle.
The supports have moved over. This is going to be a big old skirmish. Renekton loves these kind of fights, though. Shlatan taking a lot of damage. He's gone too far in. Now he's getting chased out of the back of the fight. 2hours flashing away. Spooky's low as well. And Misfits, I thought it had fallen apart, but they're the ones pushing forward. Another kill goes their way as they get the stuns down onto klowny. He's desperate to get under the tower, but that ain't happening. Sertuss with a double. Shlatan wants a little bit more, but maybe it's gone too far with the TP coming on in. The shield is there from his teammate, but the root isn't actually going to connect. No, Jactroll gobbles him up. Shlatan gets away with it.
It's just getting away with murder in this situation. Misfits Premier, we saw them make that great play on the bot side. They go to the top side, and it's an exact repeat. 2,000 gold lead at 5 minutes. This is looking on pace to maybe even beat their speed in their previous game.
Honestly, Dan, I'm an LPL caster. We've got 6 kills in the first 5 minutes. I'm in my element right here. I like watching Misfits because these guys want to fight, and that's what I want to watch. Woolite taking a heavy trade here because he's got reinforcements. VZZ has stepped up too far forward, and Sertuss is here. Jactroll chasing Mersa at the same time as VZZ jumps over Sertuss's head. The zap goes wide, but 1 or 2 more hits will do the trick. VZZ doing a good job of dodging, but it doesn't matter.
It's just, it feels like it's non-stop, constant pressure coming out, and SuppUp, they are really looking rough. It's been barely any time at all, and we said the composition needs time, it needs to get going, and it feels like they're already starting to struggle in this one. They're already falling their faces. Now, 3k gold lead. It's disaster.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I thought Agresivoo was going to E twice right at klowny there and just go for the all-in. Doesn't opt to enact that play for now. And klowny is having a bit of a tough time in the top lane. Now, Orcs, my understanding of this lane matchup is that Gnar wins it generally, but if the jungler comes, you can dive mid Gnar, right?
Yep.
Based on these CS numbers, that's not how this is going.
Yeah, so I think as well, one thing that can be said for the Renekton, if you're playing it well, you can get up in Gnar's face when he's in mini, and that is something that Agresivoo has been doing, but also the roam from klowny really didn't help with regards to this lane. A little bit of extra gold from Agresivoo on that assist, but the most part, it was just the fact he had to leave lane, he had to assist his team, and they ended up falling flat, and I think that's part of the reason why he's fallen behind in farm. Oh, the items look so rough. Yeah, I think the big thing for me is Shlatan having the Hextech Alternator and the Ionians already. Hextech Alternator is such a strong component item, just that extra burst damage, especially for Nidalee, and they're looking for more.
Another fight in this bottom side here as Spooky's getting chased out. The stun from Jactroll is real nice, and it's yet another kill for Shlatan, who is just running away with this game. A double for the Nidalee. That'll be a guaranteed dragon, and I'll tell you what, Misfits are not messing around. The speed run is very real. That spear was way too close to comfort for VZZ.
You can't scale against Misfits Premier. I think this is a clear lesson as to that. They don't give you the opportunity. Spooky wants to make a play bot lane, but realistically, even if this goes amazing, right, your support is level 3, Mersa's super weak, you're not going to kill Woolite. He's got the protection for the Tahm Kench, and Shlatan turns up once again and manages to just destroy everything. That spear connecting on the Mersa as well. It's once more, SuppUp are opting into these plays, opting into these fights, and Misfits Premier are like, sure, we'll fight more, we're winning every single one.
Just look at the scoreboard. 4,000 gold leads, which coincides very nicely with the 4 kills that Shlatan has got for himself this game. Sertuss now putting pressure on twohoyrz underneath that mid lane tower because he knows that Spooky has no way to get in here. Spooky has no way to try and influence these lanes because he's so far behind individually at this point. If Shlatan shows up, you just know it goes in favor of Misfits. So right now, SSU already, it feels like, with their backs against the walls, which is unbelievable. We're 8 minutes in, Dan. This isn't meant to be this one-sided.
Yeah, I mean, I expected Misfits Premier to go in fast based on the comp, based on what they need to do against SuppUp. But I feel like SuppUp were kind of a little bit disrespectful to early ganks, and it's backfired so massively. And I think it's crazy how SuppUp made that game against a Go Rogue look so close, but this one already even looks so one-sided. And now Shlatan picking up the dragon already, and I feel scared for this bot lane right now, just because Slatan's within proximity. If one of those spears connects, it's doing so much damage.
Yeah, every time he does his gromp, I'm like quaking on behalf of VZZ and Mersa here. But yeah, I think you bring up a good point when you mentioned the previous game, because I want to reset expectations here that SSU are coming in as an underdog from the Balkans, right? And in their game against Aggro Rogue, the expectation was that Aggro Rogue would be a heavy favorite, would run away with things, blah, blah, blah. We've heard it all before, right? That wasn't what actually happened. SSU surprised us, and suddenly I gained this faith in SSU that maybe this was going to be the team that upset the apple cart and changed expectations. Now we come into their second game against an LFL team, and suddenly it's like a question of, maybe LFL is on a different level to Ultra League right now, because it's feeling like across this EU Masters, LFL's looking real good.
True. I mean, it is transit properties, which is a little bit dangerous, but I will say that LFL, definitely K-Corp have looked monstrous, and so far Misfits Premier have as well. I definitely think they're looking like the strongest region right now. Granted, SuppUp really, you know, the Balkans haven't always been that strong region, but we've seen big upset performances in the past. It was a long time ago, but KlickTech showed that the region can challenge. And that was a thought process coming in that we had that game yesterday, thinking that maybe this could be a sort of resurgence for the region. And there's still chances, there's still opportunities. Even in this game, they still have those scaling elements, but they need to be on full damage control now. Any more advantages that Misfits get are just going to make it more and more difficult. Herald, you can't contest. Dragons, you can't really contest. It's just clear waves and play safe.
Oh, Shockwave in the mid lane. Jactroll just wanders on in 2hours. Has the flash available, but just perfect execution to get away. The rocket just sails by like something out of a cartoon. But 2hours does get away with his life. Importantly, though, that's a huge amount of space bought in that mid lane to mean that this Herald is uncontestable now. And continuously, we're seeing Agresivoo as well building that lead in the top side of the map. We talked about it before, but now 20 CS advantage, the same CS advantage in the jungle. Obviously, we've got the 2 kills in the mid lane. Feels like there is just nothing to be done to stop Misfits running away with this one. And importantly as well, with that Herald, you can just turbocharge one of those lanes. Whichever one they fancy, whichever one they want to get ahead, just slam a bunch of gold there.
Thing is, there's already been damage done to each tower. 3 plates left bot, 4 mid, 4 top. So it's not even like you have to do too much work beyond the Herald. And I mean, something I'm scared of is Shlatan now has a completed Night Harvester already. If one of those spears hits, you're just going down, and you have to be so scared. And right now, Agresivoo,
oh no,
there's 5 members mid.
5 players are here. 2 hours. It feels like he's had 2 hours worth of ganks going towards him in the last couple of minutes. He's just having to play defensive permanently and spooky on this Volibear. Just can't do anything to get involved in the place. Mersa barely dodged a spear. And you know, we always talk about Rift Herald, and usually it'll go to the AD carry, or you'll use it to dive top lane, right? But if you have the opportunity to just slam it mid and take the mid tier 1, that's the most valuable tower in the early game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it shows how far ahead Misfits Premier are, because typically you see teams sometimes just throw Herald mid. They're like, we'll take 2 plates on the second Herald, we'll take the tower. To rotate all 5 members there and just take the tower this early in the game, it's a great play for Misfits Premier. And it's what we saw a lot from them, where they're really strong on these rotations, bringing allies in so they can have an advantage. And they're doing it again in this game. And it feels like everywhere on the map, they just have a numbers advantage. They have people moving around. And now that we have that tower down, it frees Sertuss up to move. And it makes those the towers left sort of isolated in the top and bot lane a little bit more vulnerable.
DZZ looking for an all-in here, but it's not an all-in that he's winning. He's under the tower and has to just jump away for safety. Jactroll pushing Woolite out as well, but guess who's here? It's Shlatan, and he's got some javelins to throw. A zap comes in as well. Mersa's in trouble. Spooky arriving, though. Maybe can at least protect his bot laners' lives. Whether or not they can protect this tower, though, is a whole different conversation. Shlatan moving forwards again, just chucking javelins. This tower will fall.
Yeah, I mean, just the pressure from the Nidalee, you know you can't really defend here, especially with the Tahm Kench, who's so good at diving and can reset the aggro. They give up the tower, and Misfits Premier getting further and further ahead. All 10 plates from the mid and bot lane, 4 left on the top side. And I feel like they could probably just move up towards there and start applying pressure. They may be a little bit too late to get all 15 plates, but either way, they are in a really strong position.
I'm not going to lie to you, Orcs. This just feels like Misfits is smurfing in this game right here.
Because in EU Masters.
It's not just the micro plays, right? It's not just the mechanics that we're seeing in the fight. Obviously, Misfits are all playing very well individually. The thing I'm most impressed by is the way that they're controlling the map. The macro plays that we're seeing, the way that they're grouping up to drop the Herald mid, the way that then Shlatan comes and just puts pressure on the bot lane without actually starting the fight. Like, this is relatively high-level macro play that a lot of teams in EU Masters are just not ready for.
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like they've had the best map movements of any team we've seen so far in EU Masters. It feels like just the way they stack up advantages in their favor by having more members consistently on the map. It's really great to see. I think that clearly the coordination between the team is what's excellent here. And the fact that they have such skilled individuals as well, it just makes things so hard for any team facing into them. Now, Spooky is looking for something.
He's looking for an all-in here. The
great flash
goes wide. Oh no, Spooky! Oh, he bungles it, tries to get it all over. That was the opportunity to punish Shlatan, right? That was the moment to get the shutdown and get control of the game. It all goes a little bit pear-shaped, and now Agresivoo just goes in and almost all-ins VZZ. He's able to clear most of the way, but the flash forward, Spooky trying to get the kill here, trying to find the punish they were looking for. Shlatan is behind the blade, the spear damage onto Mersa. Root does go through, Exhaust is there as well, but Shlatan, he's still got a tower there. He can just keep this going all day long. Agresivoo is looking for the way back into the fight. Sertuss has arrived as well. Spooky, first one to drop. Root across the team from Mersa. Another spear doing damage, but there's one for VZZ. In the meantime, look at Woolite on the left of your screen right here. He's pushing towards a tier 2. Agresivoo needs to try and clear the way, but the tower will fall. He's stayed too long and will be punished. He was trying to buy time for Woolite.
I do like to see, though, that SuppUp are answering. They're starting to get some kills. It was a bit messy, but they take Shlatan down and get the shutdown. They get Agresivoo as well. They managed to get that bot lane tower, and yes, it does mean they lose a lot on the top side, and Woolite is getting farmed. But I feel like if you sat back, this game was over anyway. SuppUp needed to try and make something happen to get back in the game.
No. Jactroll's looking to 1v1 the enemy top laner. That's not how Tahm Kench support is meant to work, Orgs.
I mean, if he can make it happen, he can make it happen. Oh my, if you'd stolen that, I would have been so tilted, but doesn't manage to get it. And this is a situation where when you're a team who's behind and you go for those proactive plays, one of the issues is you haven't done any groundwork. You haven't been any flashes, so Agresivoo able to extend this for a really long time and nearly just going to get exploded there for Mersa, but the exhaust into the E lands the root. Really nice defensive play. And again, this starts to look messy, but for once, SuppUp are the team who bring more members in here. They have 5, Misfits Premier only with 3, and that bomb connect on the end critically helps them out. And I have to say, Misfits Premier, there's no reason for Agresivoo to step up here. You're winning on the top side. You could have just backed off. He could have lived. It could have only been Shlatan who went down. And I feel like Misfits Premier may be getting a little bit overconfident in this one. We saw them always stacking their advantages in the G2 Arctic game. Here it feels like they're kind of just like, yeah, we're going to win this.
I wonder why. I wonder why they're feeling so confident now.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, it's so hard for them so far in EU Masters. Well, let's take a look at Herald here. It's back onto the map. Jactroll's here trying to get vision control, and SSU, well aware of the situation. They have grouped up. You've got a Kraken Slayer there for VZZ, 2 hours with a Night Harvester as well. So it does feel like we're getting to a point where SSU have a few items to work with. And let's remember as well, this is a Seraphine composition. So if you do get a nice encore across the team, you can very much win a team fight just off of that alone and off of the sort of wombo combo aspects that you can bring. However, it doesn't look like that's an option that they're going to try and opt in for. It doesn't look like they actually want to try and force the issue and are willing to concede some of these objectives in the name of just getting a bit more farm.
Which I think is a right call. I mean, yes, they've started to pick up those mythics, but you look on the other side, Woolite already got 2 items. Shlatan already got 2 items with our Zonyas as well. It's still going to be a tricky situation. They are looking for a 4-man play bot, but I think Misfits Premier are looking to respond to this one.
Agresivoo has died here before. He knows this territory, but just dips on out of there. It doesn't even have to flash. I mean, he didn't have flash anyway, but he's just quite happily able to get out of that one. Made it look easy.
Shlatan is potentially looking to find a spear here to respond, but I think SuppUp should just be able to back away from this one. No real engaged threat from Misfits Premier.
We got a Canyon fan on the Rift right here. Shlatan playing the Nidalee, throwing up the damn one flare as well. Remember, he does have that Herald, so with a potential inside track here, you could slam that Herald towards the mid lane tier 2. There are a couple of pings going there, but I don't know if there's really enough time to actually make it over. In the meantime, 2 hours. Trying to make some map plays, right? Good response here from SSU to find some pressure somewhere on the map.
Yeah, I think cross map's what you need to do right now. Just still 5,000 gold lead, still at such a huge disadvantage. It does mean, however, you're sacrificing that dragon on the bot side of the map, and this is now the 3rd for Misfits Premier, and we saw how much damage those spears were doing. This could be an infernal soul in the next 5 minutes. You add that to that Nidalee, it's going to be like a nuclear bomb.
Yeah, this is not getting any easier for SSU. I think that's fair to say. And I want to bring something up with you, Dan.
Yep.
While we've got a minute here before the next objectives come up. we're looking at Misfits Premier, a team that is playing in France, right? They're the second seed from the LFL, but there's an important fact I want to bring up. And that's that 4 of these players are Polish. We've got a bunch of Ultra Liga teams here as well. Feels like there's a lot of Polish players. In fact, I saw a tweet from EU Masters saying that over a quarter of the players in EU Masters in the group stage here are from Poland. And I have to wonder, at what point do we stop calling it Poland, start calling it Proland? Because it feels like that's where all the pros are coming from. And look at this pro play coming out here from Misfits. Another great Herald. This time it's going to charge into the inhib. This will be a mid-inhib taken 20 minutes into the game. They are 2 minutes away from their current record here at EU Masters with a 22-minute and 12-second win. Don't think they're going to try and force the speed run here today, though, as they perhaps rotate up towards the Baron pit.
Yeah, a bit more respectful after that earlier play. They are going to try and steal away this blue buff. And you see how SuppUp are consistently just grouped up as much as possible because they need to be. If any of them are core isolated, Misfits can easily translate this into a Baron, but Shlatan could be in trouble.
Shlatan's been caught out here. We'll be able to jump away. Shockwave. Going to be Zhonya's away from here. 2 hours, though. Should be able to finish that one. In fact, Spooky gets the kill. Not going to be a moment where they go for the Baron, though. What do you reckon, Dan? Was that a moment to just try and rush the Baron and try and make the miracle play happen? Because I feel like that's the kind of swing you needed.
I think it's extremely risky, but I do respect it.
That's the LPL Baron right there.
Jungler down, go for it. You got a Seraphine to keep you healed up. Oh, teleport coming in though. Looks like Misfits Premier want to respond.
Here's why you don't go for the Baron, right? Misfits showing us why that was definitely not a possibility as the TPs come on in the Abyssal Voyage from Jactroll and Woolite. And now they regain control of this area. Shlatan just respawned back on the map now, so Misfits very much in control once more. And it's important to remember that with this Orianna, with the Renekton, Misfits can even pressure the side lanes while all of this goes on if they want to. They can always send Agresivoo bot because he's got TP.
Yeah, absolutely. And they've shown that their use of these globals is really effective. They can send them down, they can TP in, but for now, they're actually just going to start it up. It's very obvious for SuppUp that this is going on. They have the Skull Crab, as you can see. But resets just came in. They may not even get here in time to contest this one.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where it's like, yes, you do know Baron's going on. Come and fight us for it. Bring it on. What are you going to do about it? Misfits happily just walk up, take the Baron. No worries whatsoever.
Saw a great window. The resets had come in from SuppUp. They knew they wouldn't be able to get back there in time. And there's no way SuppUp could... Probably couldn't fight them anyway, but especially couldn't fight them with a numbers disadvantage. So they take the Baron and they should just allow them to start knocking on the base off SuppUp. Already one inhibitor down the mid lane.
2 hours and Shlatan both like sidestepping with each other. It's like, you gonna throw the spear? I'm ready. I'm ready. If you throw the spear, I'm ready. Misfits now push in. They've got the Baron. They've already got the mid inhib, remember. So Supers will slowly but surely start to pressure while SSU are protecting this tower. The flash underneath for 2 hours here. Agresivoo gets back out with his life. Spooky into the play. Encore across the team, but the shockwave to answer here. As BZZ is exhausted. One more rocket to do the trick. It's a zap instead. It's a good ult from klowny here, and it answers with 1 kill. Is it going to be enough, though? 2 hours now on the back of the fight. He didn't go down the first time. Now he's onto Agresivoo. This is the moment for SSU. Can they turn the fight around? Woolite gets gobbled up by Jactroll, pushed out to safety. Slowed, though. Can they finish the kills? Woolite goes down. 2 hours still alive, and Jactroll the only one remaining.
What a close fight, though. SuppUp finding the window is actually an overstep from Misfits Premier. A beautiful TP flank from klowny, and the lockdown comes in from the Gnar. They wipe the Baron buff off the side of Misfits Premier and take a pretty good fight. You can see here, Agresivoo wants to go aggressive, but 2 hours with a beautiful Shroud. If he hadn't done that, probably would have just died straight up. And then he resets for the TP. The ult comes down, and it's a great gobble from Jactroll to keep Woolite safe, but this flank from klowny flashes in. Double stun here. They manage to take out Sertuss extremely quickly, and then it's all on Woolite, and you can see the goal is to take him out here as he starts pumping out damage. Spooky manages to lock him up. He survives so long with Jactroll once again, but eventually gets caught out in the end with this beautiful play from Mersa just finishing off. It was so down to the wire, but SuppUp showing why we had them hyped up, why we thought maybe there's a chance of an upset, because we said their comp is scaling, it's starting to get later in the game, and they're starting to put up a fight.
And it's important to remember that the average game time for SuppUp was like 33 minutes, I think, off the top of my head, which is quite a long average game time. Misfits are generally a much faster team than what we expect from SuppUp. So the longer this goes on, the more into the comfort zone of SuppUp we will arrive. But I don't know if this will keep going on, because this would be the Infernal Soul for Misfits. If they get this smite, that might be the final nail in the coffin. They are playing a lot more cautiously than they have been, though. Klowny in Mega Gnar. Misfits just have to play it safe for now. Wait for the Mega Gnar to be gone. They can threaten this one, but Spooky's been pretty on point with his smites across the course of this game. He's been keeping his blue buffs and whatnot. Agresivoo just runs straight at Spooky, forces him away. It's too beautiful from Misfits. And now Agresivoo wants a little bit more as well. Onto Spooky he goes, but we'll back away. The Buster Shot hits him, and it means the Misfits have to disengage.
Oh, they're still chasing though. There's another blast cone. Should be able to get out here.
Jactroll doesn't know the word disengage.
He's just going in, but Infernal Soul for Misfits Premier, you've already got a 5k gold disadvantage. This does make things worse, but I think SuppUp made the right call. They didn't have the Mega Gnar, a couple of low health bars, so they weren't able to heal up in time with the Seraphine. They said, cool, we're going to live to fight another day. I think as well, with Misfits Premier being on the red side, the better chance to have a favorable fight is when they're in the Baron pit, when they're sort of trapped in there. If they want to leave, they have to sort of walk past these walls where the Mega Gnar can be really effective. And a big factor as well, with it being the Infernal Soul map, SuppUp have an easier time moving through the jungle to approach a Baron. You have the terrain that's been removed. It's a lot easier to navigate as a result. So I think it's the right decision. I think if SuppUp are going to come back in this game, you want to wait till Misfits Premier make a fumble at Baron.
Well, that'll be the potential window, but Baron up in 2 minutes. The concern I've got, Dan, is, yeah, maybe there's an option that a fumble could happen at Baron, right? But with the Infernal Soul, I feel like Misfits never have to risk that, right? They're pretty good right now. You've got Woolite with 3 full items. You've almost got 3 items on Shlatan, the jungler. Junglers don't usually keep up with the AD carries when it comes to items, but he's doing such an insane job this game that he's able to keep that gap low. And it feels like they're in a position where Misfits can kind of ignore the neutral objectives a little bit and just put pressure on themselves and just literally flex the fact that they are 6,500 gold.
Thing is, what starts to become a little bit tricky is the scaling aspect of SuppUp. You can sort of try and slow things down and just use that gold advantage, but if you make another mistake, you could end up giving over this Baron that's in a minute. If you start fumbling things, you start letting the game go later, that's where SuppUp's composition really could become problematic. So they are going to try and get this tower down on the bot side. I don't think they'll go further. I expect to see them reset off the back of this and then look to get control around that Baron. They'll keep the gold lead healthy, but they need to make sure they're secure in this Baron. And ideally, you want to keep SuppUp away. What you want is you want really strong vision control in the area, and there's such a long distance that SuppUp has to push through to phase check before they get to the Baron. Every bush they walk into, they could walk into a Nidalee spear. And it's still doing so much damage. It can still force Spooky to back away. He's not tanky enough to soak them. So I want to see really deep vision from Misfits Premier with a setup for this. Don't give them any opportunity for a steal.
Yeah, that'll be the challenge here for Misfits. And one thing we've said about Misfits across the course of this game and the previous game as well is that the macro gameplay has been good. It's been one of the most impressive parts about what Misfits are bringing to the table here. So you'd expect that coming towards this Baron, they should be able to control the area well, should be able to zone Spooky away well. And when you look at the Infernal Soul fight, right? That was exactly what they did. Just all in onto Spooky, make sure that he has to ult away from the dragon and you can guarantee the smite.
Absolutely. Force him away and then problems start to arise. And I think the big thing as well is Mega Gnar. Mega Gnar can be such an impact in these fights. And without it, it's not just the fact that you lose that huge ultimate, but you lose an extra body. Spooky isn't that tanky. We've seen that time and time again. He's the one who's forced to face check and he's getting chunked out. So if you do manage to chunk him out, force him away, the smite is no longer an option. And there isn't really that 50-50 steal opportunity. The vision control is there. It's not super deep, but it's very much enough. You can see that.
There's nothing.
Oh yeah, there's nothing for the side of SuppUp. They're just going to take this one.
Yeah, it's just complete darkness from this side of SuppUp. Thank you, observers, for toggling the vision there and showing that literally that entire half of the map is just in darkness aside from the lane. And, I mean, you're absolutely right. If they could just keep Spooky away, there's no contest on the smite. But even better than that, if you just keep the entire enemy team away, there's no contest of anything.
Yeah, just a free Baron. You've got the Infernal Soul. You've got the Baron. You could start putting pressure on this tower. And again, any Nidalee Spear connects, That means someone likely to have to go back to Fountain. Woolite has the range to shred this tower. It's already gone. They're not even good, but double TP coming in from SuppUp. They want the flank.
Final moment here for SSU as they go in. Mersa looking for the encore across the team. So only going to hit one, though, as klowny gets onto the backline. Sertuss goes down. Woolite chased over the wall by 2hoyrz. That was beautiful. Now into the fray once more. It's 3v3 right now. VZZ and 2hoyrz have to carry the fight. Shlatan goes in. VZZ hammering away. 2hoyrz picks up the kill. Agresivoo now exhausted. Jactroll low on HP as 2hoyrz has the Zhonya's to work with. VZZ blowing up the croc here as he's desperate to get a win.
Huge team fight win there for SuppUp. They managed to find it again. The flank comes in and klowny once more delivers. Him and 2hoyrz on point with these flanks, shutting down both of the carries of their side. The Misfits Premier, they come in with this long flank, and Spooky, he buys a ton of time. He sees them trying to disengage, and he stops it from happening by forcing himself in. Sacrifices himself so the team collapses, and that gives space for klowny. Slams Sertuss against the wall, but 2hoyrz, this flash ult just destroys Woolite instantly. And the follow-up fight, Misfits Premier try and do what they can, but Shlatan, no mana. Both of those major carries down. He just ends up getting caught out. VZZ and 2hoyrz on fire here with Mersa for the backup. And as much as they managed to get 2 members out, after we get out of this replay, Elder Dragon is about to be up. SuppUp are back on the map and should be able to contest this one. This could be the way they get back in the game. If they win this, if they get the dragon, this could be their way to outscale Misfits Premier.
This is the moment. klowny getting a little bit dangerous there. Maybe hopped a little too far. Elder going to be started by Misfits, the Bulgarian carry duo, VZZ and 2hoyrz. They're the guys to keep your eyes on here. Half health on the Elder already as Woolite starting this one off. klowny is pretty low. He's getting close to Gnar. That would be the opportunity as Spooky jumps over the wall, but they can just pause the Drake and go on Spooky instead. They're going full Ghostbusters here. Spooky has to just leg it from that one.
Gnar nearly ready, though. klowny could look for a window here.
This could be the opportunity. klowny, there's no vision right there. There's control ward to keep him invisible. He's looking for the full flank. He's going the whole way around the pit. Mersa low on HP. They're just going to try and burn the dragon down. klowny's off on the backside. It's not quite Gnar just yet. Actually has a stopwatch. Here we go with the spy fight. It's Spooky to get it. This is the moment for SSU. This is the moment to turn it all on its head.
There's an ace they can end here. The death time is so long. This second seed of the LFL is going to fall. SuppUp was so far behind, and they've done it.
And you know, after that immaculate early game from Misfits, we were saying they were smurfing on EU Masters, but SSU say no. They put their foot down in this game. They win late game team fight after late game team fight. They take the Elder Dragon and they push towards the Nexus.
What an achievement. This team, SuppUp, went 0-6 in the last EU Masters, and now they've taken down one of the front runners. We thought they were speedrunning the tournament. Misfits Premier just speedran that in the wrong direction. SuppUp getting the win.
Unbelievable performance here from SuppUp, and a huge moment for them and for their region, coming in off of, like we said last time around, 0-6 for EBL. This time around, now taking a game that was, as far as I was concerned, when that Infernal Soul was finished off, I considered this a done game. I thought it was already over. Misfits looked like they were going to clean house. Not a chance. SuppUp take them down 3 team fights in a row.
After 6 minutes, when there was like a 4K gold lead, I was like, okay, chill it out. This game's probably going to be open and done. But I mean, it's not even just the fact, it wasn't like a raw outscale. It wasn't just, okay, our comp is better later, let's sit back. The flank execution was beautiful. klowny finding those great Gnar ults, and honestly, 2hoyrz on the Akali, making the champion look broken. You had a Tahm Kench to protect your carries, and it just wasn't enough. He just finding these beautiful backline access moments. It was honestly a pleasure to see, and I think you might look at this and say, okay, Misfits Premier made mistakes. Every team makes mistakes. This was SuppUp stepping up and playing far beyond what we've seen from them before. Really great play.
Yeah, beautiful stuff coming out from SuppUp and Misfits as well now. They're going to be gutted with that loss. That's a rough one to take for the LFL. We'll see how they're going to do later on into the tournament. We're going to jump into a break for a moment here. And we'll see how Kick are going to do from the Ultra League. Lots of Polish players stepping up today. We'll see how they do right after the break.
can't help myself, and I really wanna show you that I wanna get to know you. Believe what I told you, and I can't help myself. When I look into your eyes, I see you don't wanna fight it. There's no need to stop trying, because I'll never give up on you, even if that's what you want me to do. Give me a chance, cause I know I can prove. Baby, the last thing I want is to lose you. And I can feel the pain inside of us, and I know I can change for your love. Oh baby, I don't mind, cause your love's so hard to find. I wanna make it right. Every last bit of my heart I give to you. Yeah, we can call it a second chance for love, and I know I need every single moment with you, cause I finally found the one that makes me feel at home. And so I'll never give up on you, even if that's what you want me to do. Give me a chance, cause I know I can prove. Baby, the last thing I want is to lose you. And I can feel the pain inside of us, and I know I can change for our love. Oh baby, I don't mind, cause your love's so hard to find. I wanna make it right. Every last bit of my heart I give to you, and I'm sorry that I had to leave you waiting. You deserve more than I ever gave you. You can fall into my arms, yeah, I promise I can change for your love. Oh baby, I don't mind, cause your love's so hard to find. I wanna make it right. Every last bit of my heart I give to you. Oh baby, I don't mind, cause your love's so hard to find. Baby, I wanna make
All or nothing. Welcome back, everybody, to EU Masters. And well, have we just had a game? If you just missed that, you have missed one of the best games we've had in EU Masters so far. I'm Much I'm joined by Orcs. And we've got a lot to unpack here, Orcs, because Misfits, after an amazing early game when it came to that late game team fighting, SSU just had their number time and time again.
I mean, yeah, we're going to see these replays, and after you watch these first few clips, you're going to think this game... I mean, I thought this game was unlosable for Misfits Premier, but they proved me wrong. And it was just disastrous. We saw Shlatan get so far ahead in this Nidalee. This pick he is so good at. Just really solid execution, and that should have been enough. I expected that to be enough, but it was these late game fights where SuppUp started to answer back. Beautiful coordination with the CC, and the critical thing was these flanks. The duo of klowny coming in with 2hours as well. I expected Woolite and Sertuss to be able to be safe in these ones, but they were just consistently challenged, consistently jumped on. The Akali doing absolute wonders here to shut them down.
Yeah, and it's the shuriken flip here that lands onto Woolite to follow him and be able to finish the kill. And then this was the moment, right? The snipe comes in from Spooky, able to get the smite down and take the Elder Dragon. That was the moment. Shlatan had a great early game,
as well.
but that smite was what he needed to get.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. You cannot say that throughout this entire early game that Shlatan wasn't the better jungler, but when it came down that clutch moment at the end, Spooky came through, got the smite, they get the team fight win. I mean, look at the gold graph. They didn't even get back to positive before the end of the game. The peak difference was 9.3k. And if you look at the 30-minute mark, that was when they won that team fight to end the game. So even when they won that team fight, they were still like 7,000 gold behind, and they managed to close it out. You even look at the damage done, and it's just still far ahead. Like, look how much Woolite was able to put out, but it just didn't matter. The team fight execution was there. They waited, they found the scaling opportunities, they had some good cross-map plays, they punished Misfits Premier as well. I think that's a big thing, is this wasn't just a sit back and scale from SuppUp. They found their windows, the flanks came in, and they actively punished the over-aggression from Misfits Premier. It was just great to see.
Yeah, really. And even in the early game, actually, SSU were trying to be proactive, and often that ended up biting them. Like a few of those early game plays, it was actually Shlatan counter-ganking as opposed to setting the plays up himself. And it felt like perhaps they were being a little too proactive and forcing situations that they couldn't actually win. But then in the later stages of the game, that proactivity kept on coming up. We, as you rightly said, saw the TP flanks. And I think a very important thing to point out is that they were quite happy to forego a lot of these objectives. And this is something we talked about when we saw them go up against Aggro Rogue, that both of the teams were teams that in the later stages of the game, really big on the objectives, but earlier on were very, very happy to just forego things like the dragons. And even here, we saw them foregoing Barons and just acknowledging the fact that they were far enough behind. They couldn't fight for the Baron. They had to wait for the right moment. And it's great to see that kind of intelligent play here at eMasters.
Yeah, they gave up Infernal Soul as well. They actively didn't choose to fight it because they couldn't find a window in. And it's so difficult when you see a team that's ahead. You see a team with the caliber of Misfits Premier from the LFL, which is such a stacked region, and you're just sitting back and like, okay, give them Infernal Soul. That never feels good, but it just shows so much patience coming out from SuppUp to make those decisions and pick their opportunities. Because it's not like they just threw 100 darts at the dartboard and one of them managed to hit the bullseye. They waited until they knew they had the ideal moment and managed to clutch it out. What a game, honestly. Yeah.
Really, really, really impressed by SSU. I do want to look at the other side of this conversation as well, though, Dan. And I don't want to be that guy and point fingers, but Misfits were the favorite coming in here. Misfits were the team that just absolutely smurfed on G2 Arctic yesterday. This was the team that at 20 minutes into the game, we weren't sure if they were going to try and push an end just to beat their record from yesterday. So that's the expectation coming from an LFL second seed. But the late game team fighting, perhaps the late game decision making, not quite where it needs to be from this squad.
Yeah, I think there was some over-aggression, particularly. We saw that even earlier in the game. We saw Shlatan getting punished in situations. There was moments where Misfits Premier, yes, they have a lead. Yes, they want the game finished fast, but they have to play respectfully. And I think the thing we saw against G2 Arctic was anytime G2 Arctic tried to counteract them, there was more members from Misfits Premier. They managed to rotate, they managed to bring more. That wasn't really happening. It felt like Misfits Premier were like, it's fine, we're strong, we'll outplay them with the numbers disadvantage. And the level of players right now in EU Masters, you can't disrespect like that. You can't just expect to outplay with a numbers disadvantage. You need to stack the deck in your favor. They didn't, and then when it came to those team fights again, the opportunities that arose for SuppUp were coming from things like having deep wards behind a TP2. If you move slowly, if you sweep the areas, you remove those wards, those plays never even happen.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about being able to control the area that you're playing in. And unfortunately, didn't work out for Misfits. And as you just saw on your screen, the next game that we're going to be going into is going to be Group A. We finally get to see the final group in action. Our next two games, in fact, are going to be the 4 Group A teams, and we finally get to see if they're going to live up to expectations. An overarching theme of EU Masters so far has been expectations versus reality, and we're going to see how that's going to go as we move into our last group. I feel like we're getting a good landscape of what the other 3 groups are like, but we're going to jump into a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to see what Group A looks like.